You guys are welcome to take a seat, and kids can also be dismissed at this time for kids' church. But what an incredible song that is. Um, I wasn't even planning on sharing this song, this history today. Just talking about something different. But do you know the origin of that song and just those words of it as well? I mean, I know that's the more contemporary version, but the actual just that chorus of it as well as my soul. Um, I wish I could know all the details of the whole history behind it, but the story actually comes from a couple hundred years ago, or actually not that long ago, but I believe it was in the 1800s. There's this man and his family. I want to say their last name was the Thomas family, and they lived in Chicago. And a husband and wife, and they had three daughters. I believe they had a daughter who was around 12, another one who was around 8, and they had another one who was between 1 and 2, really really young, and very successful family. And I believe they were maybe second generation, had just moved to America from Europe, and they were in Chicago. And he was a very successful lawyer, very successful, especially from their roots of how their parents sacrificed everything to move across the ocean at that time in the world. And so they had started an amazing life. This man and this woman. Um, it would have been around the time of the Chicago fire, when they lost everything. They lost their entire business. They lost their home, and sad enough, they also lost their youngest daughter in the fire, and everything was gone. I mean, just all their success, all their hard work was gone because of the fire, and it was just such a hard time for them. And so they wanted to take some time to head back to Europe to be with family. And so the wife, she actually took the two older daughters who survived the fire, and they jumped on a ship because they didn't have planes at that time. They jumped on a boat and they were heading across the ocean, while the husband stayed back in Chicago to kind of clean up after everything that happened, to kind of put together all their affairs and whatnot he had to do. And sadly, on the journey, as the mom and their two oldest daughters were heading across the ocean, something happened with the ship, and it actually subsided, actually tipped over and sank, and very few people survived. Unfortunately, the two older daughters of that family were killed, and only the mom survived. And rescue boats and different things, she got back to Europe, and she had sent a letter over to let her husband know that it happened. That even after they had lost everything in the fire, they lost even more on the boat. And she sends this letter back, and she lets him know. And so he's like, all right, I'm coming. I'm almost done. I'm coming to see you. So he gets on a boat too. And as he's sailing across the ocean, and his ship comes to that very same spot where his daughters were killed, he's kind of looking out over the ocean. And he grabs a piece of paper and pen, and he starts to write those words: that God, it is well with my soul. Even through life's biggest storms, the worst things that could ever happen to me, it is well with my soul. God, my soul is in your hand. Just what an incredible story behind just that song. I wanted to share it with you. It was totally different than what I was going to originally say, but I think it's beautiful. I know we'll be singing that song again in the future. I didn't know if you knew that story, but just the depth, the richness of those words and where they come from. And I hope even as you sang them, you can say it too. That God, even through the heartache of my life, God, it is well with my soul. My soul is yours. That Jesus, you've cared for the aching of my heart. So, but here we are again in our Turning the Corner series, and it's been quite an incredible adventure as we've been talking about lots of things. We've talked about just this real richness of how Jesus wants to lead us onto a whole new direction. This whole idea, this concept of turning the corner. We talked about 2 weeks ago when we started this series that being in a relationship with God is not just kind of maintaining the status quo, not just coming to church every Sunday or being a good person, but it's really putting ourselves in a position where Jesus can make us new. We can really, He's the one who brings us to a new life. We read the story, if you remember, in Mark chapter 5 about that crazed, demon possessed man when Jesus kind of crossed the lake and he got to the other side and he got out. At the same moment, that man was rushing towards him. And that man falls on his knees and begins asking Jesus to help him. And so I remember Jesus, when we read from that story, he casts out the demons and he heals this man. And it's this incredible moment of transformation that this man experiences for himself. It's powerful. And so I love that how we talked about the reality and the richness that Jesus, he wants to lead us onto a new life, one that's better than what we have right now. He's not trying to control us, to hold us back, or keep us down, but he's really trying to bring us to a real sense of freedom. And it was an amazing week 2 weeks ago as we talked about that. I remember last week we talked about just also once again the richness of how Jesus wants to help us break just some of the habits we have in our life. I believe last week was an awesome week last week. For those of you who are here, you remember our conversation about that. We read the story of when Jesus, in John chapter 4, when Jesus talks with that woman at the well and how she had just this cycle, this habit in her life where she had this hole within her, right? This aching of her soul. And she was trying to find happiness and find meaning in all of these relationships. And so she was going from one guy to the next, and to find love and feel happy and feel that gap that was inside of her. And although she maybe didn't want to go bouncing to each of those relationships, that's just all she knew. She was stuck in that. And so we had a great conversation last week how Jesus broke her out of that habit, and how the reality is for us today, he offers us that same thing, that same freedom. Maybe there are habits in our life that we're not proud of, things that we like to keep in the dark. That woman didn't want to bring out into the open her habit of bouncing from one unhealthy relationship to the next. And so maybe there are habits we have in our life that we're not proud of, things that we kind of keep in the closet that we don't want anyone to know. We don't want our friends to know. We don't want our kids, especially maybe not even our spouse, to know of these habits. Feel trapped by them. And we came across and discovered together the amazing reality that Jesus can set us free. That just how that woman left that moment of her conversation with Jesus and she was freed from that life. She didn't go back to those guys, but she was free. We talked about just the reality of how Jesus wants to help us make that same turn. Like, it was awesome last week. And I've been looking forward to today. I really believe that God is going to talk to us again today as we kind of have this living room conversation together about just more about how Jesus wants to help us turn the corner in our life, how he wants to help us make some changes where changes need to be made and kind of embark on a new life with him. So I'm excited for today. Would you pray with me for a moment as we kind of get to continue on with our time together? God, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for bringing us here to this place. Just the cool reality, Lord, is that a year ago this church did not exist. Our church family did not exist. And God, even looking forward to today, for us all to meet at Berkeley Middle School and to be a church and worship you and have great conversations about who you are and who you're calling us to be. And so, Lord, this morning you can have every bit of our attention, our hearts. Lord, speak to us. Because sometimes we talk about hard things, but God, speak to us. Help us to understand, help us to learn, and take us further in our walk with you. That's what we want more than anything in the world. We love you, Jesus. We all pray this in your amazing, amazing name. Amen. Amen. So this past week, Aaron and I got to have just a cool family adventure. The three of us, me, Aaron, and Mason, we took a little getaway up to Atlanta. And we left Sunday, the last Sunday, right after church, and we jumped in the car and we just raced up there. And we stayed at an Airbnb right close to downtown, and we just had an amazing time right there. We got these city passes, so we were able to go to a bunch of different attractions that the city had, and it was a blast. And so this first picture is actually one of our time at the aquarium. I love Mason's face. Do you guys catch that? Like, he's got like this face of disgust. Maybe he's looking at some other kid with a sucker or something. I don't know, but he's like, give me that sucker, kid. But here we are. We're actually going through just the tunnel at the aquarium, and it's actually a huge dream of ours for Aaron and I. We'd always wanted to go to the Georgia Aquarium. I don't know if you've been. If you haven't, you have to go. It is amazing. The space where we're in right now, you stand in this conveyor belt kind of sort of thing that moves on the floor, kind of like at the airport. And over top of you, you're in this tunnel, and the tank. I mean, just think of like the biggest fish tank you've ever seen in your life. And there are 30-foot, whale sharks swimming right above you. I mean, it was amazing. Really, the space that we were in right here. I guess Mason wasn't yet looking at all the fish yet. He was probably looking at something else, but he loved it. They had dolphin shows and sea lion shows. It was amazing. We had an amazing time. I loved it. It was so cool just to see, especially in that tunnel, these enormous, monstrous, marine wildlife, animals just swimming around us. It was amazing. So you have to go. We also went to another place. We also went to the Atlanta Zoo, and if you haven't been there, it was pretty amazing. And so no, normally zoos this time of year kind of, they're kind of packing up shop. They're kind of putting away some animals because it's getting colder out. But it was amazing. We had an awesome time. And so here's actually a little family, picture. At that moment we had gotten to the zoo, the caretakers were actually cleaning and caring for the elephant's habitat, and they had moved her into this indoor exhibit, which is awesome because it was heated, and so which was great. We loved that because it was pretty chilly that day, that morning, and so we're in there. And although this is kind of a smaller picture, so it's hard to see just the depth, but she is like right there. I mean, she is not that far away from us, and so if she were to come up really close to those bars, thankfully they had those enormous kind of like jail cell bars right there, to kind of keep some distance between you and the elephant. But it was amazing just to see this beautiful, amazing animal right in front of us. It's huge. I mean, just when Mason saw it, he was just like, oh my goodness, like look at this elephant. And, with her trunk, she was just making these incredible just noises, just this eardrum shattering, just this like type of just volume of noise. Just she was, and I can't make a good elephant noise, so don't laugh at me. But she was, I mean, it was just amazing. Like it was so awesome. And Mason was pointing at things and going, yeah, he was just making some noises, and he loved it. He loved the Atlanta Zoo, and even one of my favorite moments. Another picture I want to show you. We were in the car heading to another place, and this is like one of my favorite moments that I captured. Really, such a proud dad moment right there. Just I'm like, man, Mason, I'm so proud of you, and I caught you red-handed, maybe even green-handed, picking your nose. And so, Mason, way to go, bud. Daddy's proud of you. But we just took lots of pictures that day, and we were just wowed by everything we saw. It was incredible. And so, but one place we went to, I was actually kind of surprised with. You see, we had these city passes, and so we had lots of places, lots of options of where we could go. Right? There's this huge list of where we could go and what we could see, and they're all great. So it's kind of picking from a lot of great options. But there's another place we went to that was kind of like a museum, and it didn't necessarily celebrate or kind of display fossils or skeletons. It didn't show anything like that. It actually was very lively. It was very exciting, but it didn't have animals in it. It actually had a polar bear in this museum like place, but it was actually a guy in a costume. And I remember we went to this place, and I just kind of thought, okay, here we go. We're gonna rush through this place. It's not gonna be that special. And it was incredible to be in this massive building, this enormous structure that had all these spaces in it, that all was focused and celebrated one very small product. And for me, I thought it was just me, just kind of breezing through our tour there. But what was incredible is we went from one showroom, learning the history of this product and how it has become a beverage phenomenon around the globe, and how this company has put its product into the hand of almost every single person in the world, especially in the Western world. I was amazed to learn not just about the history of this product, but even just what they've created. How we went from one showroom to one multimedia experience. It was amazing. It wasn't just walking through, these display cases of antique products or advertisements, but it was different theaters they had and different things that you could go and you could see right before your eyes, and you could sit and get your picture taken with a man in a polar bear costume. You see, the place we went to was all about this product right here, Coca-Cola. We went to the world of Coca-Cola. I don't know if you've ever been there. For me, I'm not a big Coca-Cola fan. I really don't like it. I don't think it tastes great. I'm a huge like Cheerwine or root beer, that Dr. Pepper. Anybody with me? Maybe you're all like Coke fans. That's totally cool. That's all right. You can throw me out afterwards. But I only brought one. Sorry. But Erin loves Coca-Cola. She loves it. It's probably her favorite drink. And really, since we moved here to South Carolina, mine has become sweet tea. But that's neither here or there. But it's amazing. As we were there touring this incredible facility, how they showed us that this is so much more than just a beverage. When we see it, it's passed around her holding a can of soda. Okay, yeah, got it. But it's more than just a can of soda. And what their company has tried so hard since the day it was invented to do, because this was not even the first soda invented. There's others who came before it. So they're not unique for its, it being the first one. But what it was unique for, yes, it's that special flavor because really kind of what they advertised and through our tour is that no one really knows what the formula is, right? They had this like top secret formula, like we're not going to tell you what it is, but what would you describe it as? And so everyone, kind of shares different ideas of what it tastes like or how they would describe, you know, just the flavor. But it was beyond just a great tasting, unique tasting beverage. But what was amazing for me to discover about Coca-Cola is that they've worked so hard and why people love it so, so much is because they've made it into a product that has an international community of people with shared stories and shared experiences. Would I say that? But they've worked. So, I mean, it's some incredible, very successful marketing strategy and all these things. But just to think about the reason why this one particular soda, out of all of the flavors in the world, has become iconic because people have established emotional ties to it. And they shared story after story about why people love Coca Cola. I even asked Erin, like, Erin, why do you love Coke so much? She's like, oh yeah, it tastes good. I'm like, yeah, but why? Why else do you love Coke? And she just shared. She's like, as a kid, we didn't grow up with a whole lot of money, and we loved whenever we go out to eat at a restaurant. It was rare, but whenever we got to eat, we, me and my siblings and my mom, we had to order water, just kind of save money. But my dad, he would always order a Coke, and she just told me that it would be so cool sitting there at the restaurant as a kid, as we would kind of sneak from our waitress. We'd pass around my dad's glass of Coke, and we'd each take a sip. And for her, every time she tastes this, it brings back those happy memories of being with her family, those happy memories of her childhood. I heard this other story from another lady who was there. She shared that, you know, when it was actually a younger girl, but she shared that she loves Coke so much because when she was really, really young, she would always sit on her front porch with her dad and drink it. It was like their special thing. Right when they had daddy-daughter time, they would sit on their front porch and they'd drink a can of Coke together. And she said when daddy went off to serve, he left overseas. She said there'd be so many times where I felt so alone and I missed him so bad. And it would help me kind of go through it was I would sit on I'd sit on the front porch and I'd drink a can of Coca-Cola. So it's more than just beverage, but they've worked so hard to help people create these emotional ties to it, these feelings associated with it of happiness and joy and family and friends and community. But it's become a can filled of nostalgia and filled of happy memories and happy emotions. And so, Pierce, my friend, I need your help for a second. See, I would love to drink this, but I'm not a big fan of Coke. But I'd like you to crack that open for us, man, and let me know what you think. When you take a sip, does it taste like Coke, or is it a can full of memories? The Coke, I wouldn't let you work there, but yeah, but that's what they communicate the entire time about their product. Because they work so hard to have people have those emotional ties to their product, which is why it's they've had such a great expansion more than any other beverage in the beverage industry, which is pretty amazing. And so similar to how Ford has, here in America, how they've sold more F-150 trucks or F Series trucks than any other company. They've worked very, very hard to become kind of that American product. Although there are some other amazing brands of trucks, but that they sell even more than any other truck because they've worked so hard to kind of create that association, that feeling that people have when they think about family, they think about their nation, they think about um, just who they are and their identity, and they associate with that truck. And so it's crazy to see how that beverage has become a world phenomenon, not just here in our country, but everywhere. And so I wanted to be talking about just emotions, because even after our tour, I emotionally started to feel connected to Coca-Cola, right? And so I may go to the store afterwards and buy another 12 pack and drink it this afternoon. But I've just created, even after that one experience, I've created this tie, this emotional, this feeling towards that Coke, that brand. And so I want us to begin thinking about our emotions and how God is so cool and creative. How when He created us, He gave us emotions to help us experience life. Because when we were at the aquarium, this is just one thing that when God created human beings, He created us differently, and just in this one example way, the aquarium. I did not see, these pools of jellyfish kind of gathering around, talking about their feelings and sharing Coke together. Right? I didn't see any animals at the zoo kind of getting together, talking about their morning, sipping their Starbucks coffee or anything like that. I didn't see that happening. It's unique to us. It's unique to human beings that when He created us, He made a part of our life to experience emotion. And they're wonderful. They bring flavor, they bring color and excitement to life and how we get to enjoy each and every day. We get to have these feelings of happiness and joy, right? Those things that we especially associate with Christmas coming up if you're a kid. Oh, can't wait to open those presents. Already thinking about I'm making that list right now. But those emotions, we love them, right? We love feeling happy. We love feeling excited. We love that joy, that peace, and every bit of that, right? But at the same time, through life, and just as we talk about that song as well, sometimes we don't feel that way. Sometimes we feel sadness. We feel emotions of being hurt, being let down, being taken advantage of. We felt that. And so emotions have not just been all about all the good stuff, but there have even been some bad. I believe a part of just life in general is that we can't really appreciate and enjoy that mountaintop experience if we don't ever find ourselves kind of in the valley. We can't really appreciate the view of the sunrise if all we've ever been stuck in is the trench or the roots. And so this morning I want us to talk about emotions. If we can kind of circle our minds around this raw reality, is that sometimes emotions get the best of us, right? Maybe I'm the only one, but emotions sometimes get the best of us, especially when we feel hurt by someone else, and our immediate reaction is to get upset or to get angry, right? Because we maybe I'm just the only one, right? We've never been mad, right? No one's ever cut you off in traffic and you got mad at them, right? Maybe it's just me, right? No, I feel like all of us are there. We have these feelings of when someone does something to us, we feel hurt and we instantly get mad. And do you notice? Do you notice how kind of when we experience that this switch is almost flipped inside of us? We change. That we try to be a nice person, we try to be good and all those things, but when somebody hurts us and we get mad, it's like we feel vengeful inside of us and we want to attack them back. So maybe some of us have a habit of kind of being these vocal, incredible hulks. When we feel hurt, we feel damaged, we get filled with this rage, and so we want to attack back. And so maybe you're sitting in your car and you're driving, and you're yelling, and you're letting them know they're number one, and all those things. You're yelling at these people who are next to you, but they can't hear you. You're crazy, right? And the people who are alongside of you see you sit in your car. They're like, "Wow, that person's crazy." But it's just crazy. Our emotions sometimes grab a hold of us, and they swing us around and make us see things in a way that we normally hadn't. Not necessarily in a good way. They make us say things we don't mean. They make us do things we regret. And once again, maybe I'm just the only one, but maybe I'm not. Where I got angry and I said something I did not mean, or did something that I really regretted. I don't think I'm the only one. And so I especially want to talk about anger this morning, especially in our world today, how people just are being hurt left and right and how everyone is angry. How do we handle our anger? Not let it handle us. go to school, people are mean to us, and they pick on us, and they say things about us, and it hurts. How do we protect our hearts from getting angry and lashing out or getting cold and bitter and hard? The same thing when we're at work or even in our home. How does Jesus want to lead us into a new life of making sure that we're safe? Not that those things would ever happen or they would stop happening. We live in a messed up world. Those things are going to continue to happen. But how does Jesus want to invite us to live differently? So that our hearts are not taken over by rage. That we're not consumed by hatred and vengeance when we're annoyed or displeased. You see, there's this moment in the Bible that I absolutely, every time I read this story, I'm just in awe of what Jesus does. The story is in John chapter 13, and it's an incredible story. I see leading up to it, Jesus is kind of getting ready to have this big meal with his disciples, and this is just days before he is arrested and put on the cross, days before he's executed, days before he's killed, and then rises from the dead. And so we're right there towards the end of the story, and in John chapter 13, we get to read this incredible story of how Jesus treats his disciples. And after we read it, I really believe that we're gonna be amazed by how Jesus loves on them in a way that doesn't make sense. So John chapter 13, we're gonna read what's happening starting in verse number 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Unless I wash you, you will have no part in me, with me." Verse number 9. Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, "Do not, or not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Like this, you guys. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them." I want to read just a few more verses. They're not going to be on the screen. But listen, Jesus is still talking. "I am not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen." Listen here. "But this is to fulfill the passage of Scripture. He who shared my bread has turned against me. I'm telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am who I am." I'm going to repeat that. I am telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am who I am. Very truly I tell you, whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. there's a lot we just talked about in this story, but sometimes we make this mistake of when we read the Bible and we make Jesus out to be this emotionless, robotic type person who is elevated and carries himself in a way that's so unlike us. And he does in a sense, but maybe it's just me. But when I have this image in my mind of watching Jesus interact with people, I just think of him as this person who's just kind of floating along, just talking. As he's going around town and healing people, just hey, how are you doing? I'm Jesus. Maybe I'm the only one who has that kind of that image pop into your mind when you think of Jesus. But the reality is that Jesus is fully human, just like us, and he's fully God at the same time, which is actually one of the beautiful mysteries of who God is, of who Jesus is. That he is 100% God and he is 100% human at the exact same time. I realize that it doesn't make any mathematical sense, but God is God. He created the laws of mathematics. He created the laws of nature, and believe me, he has the very power to break them and to bend them. And so we don't really know how this happens, but Jesus has this dual nature, being fully human. So he experiences and lives with the very same emotions that all of us do. And he is at the same time fully God. And so maybe you don't see this happening here in the moment, because we have a little bit of an advantage thousands of years later of reading this story unfolding in the Bible. Is because we get to see what happens next, right? Kind of like when you watch a movie for the second time or you rewatch your favorite TV show, you know the scenes that are about to happen, you know what's going to happen to each character and how the movie's going to end, right? We still enjoy watching the movie. We already know what's happening next. And Jesus does too. He knows that Judas is about to go sell him out. He knows that Judas is about to go turn him in, betray him, stab him in the back. He's going to conspire with the religious leaders and the authorities at that time, and who are looking for Jesus and looking to arrest him, to try him with a crime that he did not commit. So Judas, for some money, for a bribe, he switches teams and turns his back on Jesus. And Jesus knows that Jesus is about to do that. And even there in that conversation with Jesus talking to Peter, Jesus knows if we were to continue reading the story, Peter would say, listen, I'm never going to leave you. And you say, yes, you are. You're going to deny me 3 times. And sure enough, if you continue to read through the rest of John, you'll see as Jesus is arrested and he's being beaten and tried, that Jesus denies that he even knows him. I'm sorry, that Peter denies that he even knows who Jesus is. When people say, hey, you've been following Jesus, right? You're a Jew just like him. You've been doing life with him, right? Because these guys have been doing life with Jesus for 3 years at this moment. And here in just a couple of days, Peter's going to turn his back on him. Say, no, I don't know that man. Being afraid for his own life. He's saying, no, I don't know who he is. And along with the other 10 disciples, they're just going to fade into the crowd when Jesus gets arrested. No one's going to stand up to fight for him. No one is going to come and fight in his corner, be there to encourage and support him. Nobody. Jesus will be arrested for a crime he did not commit. He'll be whipped beyond what people can even imagine. And he'll be tried, and he will be executed the most excruciating, painful method that humanity had invented at that time in the world. And these 12 best friends of his that he'd been doing life with for 12 years, they're all about to leave his side and abandon him. And so in this moment, Jesus decides, I know what you're all about to do, but I'm not going to attack you. But Jesus instead, he grabs a bowl of water, he puts the towel around his waist. He says, even though you're about to hurt me, even though you're about to turn me in, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to care for you till the very end. I can only imagine the emotions rushing through Jesus' mind and his body as he gets on his knees and he begins washing these people's feet, these stinky, nasty, dirty feet. because this person's going to leave me. I thought this man was my friend, but he's going to betray me. I can only imagine the thoughts that were beginning to kind of boil inside him because he's fully human. I can only imagine just the ounces of thought he had of anger. How could this person do this to me? How could he do this to me? How dare he hurt me like this? How could he do this to me? But in that moment, Jesus chose to love him. Jesus chose to care for them by getting on his hands and knees and washing their feet, even though they're about to hurt him more than anyone of his friends or people around him could. Jesus loved them, even in the moment where maybe he didn't even want to love them. See, friends, as we talk about anger, as we talk about Jesus wanting to lead us onto a new direction and a new path, I want us to begin to wrestle with this reality that in moments when we feel very angry, in moments when we feel like we want to attack other people, or when anger begins to grab a hold of our hearts and make us say things or do things that we don't want to do, but they're just making us do it, Jesus invites us to love. Just here in this moment, he is loving these people who are about to hurt him. And him knowing that they're about to do it is just the same as them already having done it. Because imagine if you were in a relationship with somebody and you knew that they were going to hurt you. You knew that if you had just this amazing ability to see the future, you knew that they would cheat on you. You knew that they'd betray you. You knew that they'd hurt you more than anyone else could. You wouldn't create a relationship with them at all if you knew that would happen, right? And so in this moment, Jesus knows what they're about to do, and it's the very same thing as if they had already done it. He chooses to love them fully. Jesus taught a lot on anger. This is something he said just a few years before this moment in Matthew chapter 5. I want to read it real quick as we're kind of bringing our time together this morning. He said, "You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them to the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." Catch this next part with me, friends. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise in the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Jesus is inviting us to live perfectly in love. And he's not trying to set this tall order that's impossible for us to fulfill, but he's inviting us to people who choose to love instead of act out in hate. Be people whose hearts are filled with God's love instead of being captured and held prisoner by anger and vengeance. Jesus is inviting us to love people who are around us, people who are different. I can only imagine the wide-eyed disciples who were there in that moment hearing him say, love your enemies. Because he wasn't talking about the people who their country was at war with. And maybe when we read that, we think of that. Jesus wasn't talking about that. He's talking about people who are different than you. Because I can only imagine when they heard that, they realized, because in their culture, in their perspective, if somebody shared a different worldview, if somebody dressed differently, if somebody looked differently than me, lived a different lifestyle, and it was different in any way, they were my enemy. That was how people at that time saw themselves and how they thought. Not just people that countries are at war with each other are enemies, but Jesus is talking about people who are different than us and people who hurt us. Love them. friends, before we close our time, I want to read another very popular scripture reference. Another popular thing that people talk about when weddings are happening and love is just in the air. Maybe you might be a little familiar with this as well. In 1 Corinthians 13, this is how God talks about love. So he's speaking through one of these incredible men who are following him. His name is Paul. And Paul writes this as he's writing to friends who live in a different city from him. He says, "And yet I will show you the most excellent way. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." And this is where the very familiar part comes. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And it's beautiful how we read that at weddings, and rightfully so, but friends, we need to be reading that more. Because God calls us to love others, love people who are different, people who even hurt us. He calls us to be different than the people who are around us, not to be carried away with our anger, but to be carried away with our love. You see, just real quick, 3 ways that Jesus invites us to not be controlled by our anger, but to live in love. One way that living by love is different than living by anger is because love looks deeper. It looks deeper into the why of what happened, the why of what that person did to me, or why they did that, or it looks deeper into the situation and doesn't just jump to assumption. Love looks to understand. And love looks to communicate. Love looks to go deeper into the whole situation. It doesn't just jump right to an assumption and lash out on anger. And another way, love also looks beyond the moment. I know when we're angry, sometimes we get caught up in that moment where we feel like we just need to attack back, right? But God invites us to look beyond the moment and how our actions make impressions of who we are with the people who are around us. And how sometimes when we act out in anger, it's not good for our kids to see, it's not good for our friends or our coworkers or our family, or the list goes on and on for people to see. That's not who we are. We don't want to be those people. And my encouragement to you is look beyond the moment. Look to tomorrow. Look to how God can make that situation or whatever it could be. Look ahead to the future. Don't look to the past. Don't cling to grudges. Look to forgive. Because love forgives. Love moves forward. Love does not get caught up in what's behind us. Love looks to build and make better. And that's the last part. Love looks to build. Love does not look to destroy. Anger and vengeance look to destroy and tear down people. But love looks to build. Love looks to create something better. My friends, I encourage you. Be people who live in love. In those moments where you feel anger just beginning to grab your heart, and those words are about to come out. Say, God, help me to love in this moment. Because Jesus said that those who follow him will be known by their love. And so my last just kind of thought for you is, how do people see you? Do they see you as a ticking time bomb at moments? Are they afraid of you? Are they always walking on eggshells because of how you act when you get angry? Are your kids afraid to bring things to you? Is your spouse afraid to tell you something? Your friend's afraid to bring something to your attention because of how you act when you get angry. Friends, be known by your love. When someone hurts you, don't look to hurt them back. Look to love them. And it doesn't mean you let people walk all over you, make yourself a doormat. Defend yourself, stand up for yourself, but do it in love. Not out of spite or vengeance or any of those things. My friends, live in love. Last thing I encourage you to do today is we want to see Jesus bring us onto a new path. Because sometimes we get so filled with our emotions and we get so angry, we become people we don't want to be. And we say things that hurt. Maybe I'm just the only one, but I don't think I am. I've said things that I wish I wouldn't have said because I was angry. Or did things I did because I was angry. Jesus invites us to be perfect in love. To love people who are all around us. And that's my encouragement to you today. Don't get caught up in anger. Be caught up in God's love. And let Him bring that light inside of you. Let Him fill your heart with love. So in those moments arise. It's like a natural, this water that's poured onto a fire, just to put it right out. Don't let hurt keep on carrying through other people into you and then from you to other people. Embody God's love. Put a stop to hurt, put a stop to anger, and let God make situations and relationships new. Let Him use you to do it. Because how amazing would it be if we lived in a world where no one lashed out at each other when they were angry? Maybe we were in a relationship with someone or a friendship where they didn't lash out at us when they were angry. Friends, live in love. Let's look ahead to this dream of what God is inviting us to do. Because it is beautiful. And so much better than what we're getting to live in right now. Would you pray with me just for a moment? Thank you once again for watching this message. I hope you heard God's voice and that it deeply impacted your soul. I really encourage you to share it with a friend and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you live in the Moncks Corner area, we would love to have you join us on Sundays at 11 a.m. at Berkeley Middle School. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and that you continue to see more of who God is and what He has for you.